Dr. Crick 7 adjusted the viewing lens on her research station and watched the human sleep. The creature lay on a simple bed in the observation chamber, its chest rising and falling in a slow rhythm. She had been studying this specimen for 3 standard galactic days, and already her reports had caused panic among the senior researchers at the Galactic Institute of Xenobiology. The human was called Marcus Webb. He was a maintenance worker from a cargo ship that had crashed on the research station's planet. His ship had failed during a routine delivery, and he had been the only survivor. When the rescue team found him, he had been walking through the acidic rain of the southern continent for 2 full days without protective gear. Crick 7's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as she reviewed the medical data on her screen. The human should have died. The acid content in the rain would have dissolved the skin of any known species within hours, but Marcus Webb had survived. His skin showed burns, yes, but it was healing. Healing at a rate that made no biological sense. "Doctor, the council is ready for your report," said her assistant Pell, a small blue creature with 6 arms who managed the laboratory equipment. Crick 7 stood from her station and gathered her data tablets. The walk to the council chamber was short, but her mind raced with questions she could not answer. In her 40 years of xenobiology research, she had never encountered anything like this human. The council chamber was a large circular room with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Today, all 12 seats were filled with the most respected scientists in the galactic community. They had come from different star systems to hear about the Deathworld creature that had somehow ended up in their research facility. Crick 7 took her place on the central platform and activated her holographic display. An image of Marcus Webb appeared, rotating slowly so all council members could see. "Distinguished colleagues," she began, "3 days ago, we recovered a human from the southern continent. As you know, the southern continent has an atmosphere that is toxic to all known intelligent species. The rain there contains sulfuric acid at concentrations that would kill a Vorin in minutes and dissolve a Keth Prime in hours." She paused to let this sink in. The Vorin representative shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His species was known for their tough hide, yet even they could not survive such conditions. "The human walked through this rain for approximately 50 standard hours," Crick 7 continued. "He did so without protective gear because his suit had been damaged in the crash. When we found him, he was dehydrated and showed signs of chemical burns across 60% of his body surface." She changed the display to show medical scans taken at different times. These scans were taken at 6-hour intervals. As you can see, the damaged tissue is regenerating at an extraordinary rate. In 3 days, he has recovered from wounds that would have killed any of us instantly. A Keth Prime scientist named Zool raised one of his tentacles to speak. "Doctor, are you suggesting that humans are immune to acid?" "No," Crick 7 replied. "The acid clearly damaged him. What I am suggesting is that humans have developed survival mechanisms that allow them to endure damage that would be fatal to other species and then recover from it. This is consistent with what we know about their homeworld." She brought up an image of Earth. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from space, but the data overlays told a different story. "Earth is a Class 12 Deathworld," she said. "This is the highest classification in our system. The planet has extreme temperature variations, an atmosphere that promotes combustion, water that covers 70% of the surface yet is undrinkable in its natural state, and a star that bombards the surface with radiation. The native life forms compete through violence, disease, and consumption of each other." The council members murmured among themselves. Class 12 Deathworlds were rare. Most intelligent life evolved on Class 3 or 4 worlds, where conditions were stable enough for civilization to develop slowly and safely. "Humans evolved on this world," Crick 7 continued. "They did so without natural weapons, without protective shells, without venom or claws. They are soft creatures with thin skin, yet they became the dominant species on a planet where everything was trying to kill them. She changed the display again to show human anatomy. We have been studying how this is possible. The answer appears to be that humans are designed to survive damage rather than avoid it. Their bodies have multiple redundant systems. They can lose significant amounts of blood and continue functioning. They can survive the failure of certain organs while others compensate. And most remarkably, they heal. Crick 7 brought up a comparison chart. A Voran bone break requires 40 standard days to heal and leaves permanent weakness. A human bone break heals in 40 days but becomes stronger than before. Their bodies learn from damage and adapt to prevent future injury. The Voran representative looked offended by this comparison, but said nothing. "There is more," Crick 7 said. "Humans have a psychological adaptation we do not fully understand. They call it adrenaline response. When faced with danger, their bodies release chemicals that make them faster, stronger, and more resistant to pain. In this state, they can perform physical feats that seem impossible." She paused and looked around the chamber. Marcus Webb should have died in that crash. The impact alone should have killed him. Instead, he walked away with broken ribs and internal bleeding. He should have died in the rain. Instead, he kept walking until he found shelter. When we asked him how he survived, do you know what he said? The council members leaned forward. He said, "I wasn't going to let a little acid rain stop me. I've been through worse." A shocked silence filled the chamber. Crick 7 let it last for a long moment before continuing. He was referring to something called military training. On Earth, humans deliberately put themselves through extreme hardship to prepare for survival situations. They believe that suffering makes them stronger, and based on our observations, they may be correct. The eldest member of the council, a crystalline being named Prism Lord, spoke for the first time. "Doctor, you are describing a species that thrives on damage, a species that becomes more dangerous the more you try to destroy it. Is this accurate?" Crick 7 nodded slowly. "Yes, Prism Lord, that is exactly what I am describing. And there are billions of these creatures on their homeworld. Approximately 8 billion, according to their most recent census." Prism Lord's crystal structure flickered with what might have been concern. "Then we must learn everything we can about them. If humans ever decide to expand beyond their system in force, we need to understand what we are dealing with." Crick 7 agreed. She had already begun planning a more comprehensive study, but first she needed to return to her observation chamber. Marcus Webb was due to wake up soon, and she had questions. When she returned to the laboratory, she found Pell standing outside the observation chamber with a look of amazement on his face. "Doctor, you need to see this." She hurried to the viewing lens and looked inside. Marcus Webb was not in his bed. He was on the floor, doing something she did not understand. His body moved up and down in a rhythmic motion, his arms bending and straightening beneath him. "What is he doing?" she asked. Pell checked his data tablet. "According to our cultural database, it is called a push-up. It is a form of exercise. Humans do this to make their muscles stronger." Crick 7 watched in disbelief. He was near death 3 days ago. He had chemical burns covering most of his body, and now he is exercising. "It appears so, Doctor." She entered the observation chamber through the sterile airlock. Marcus looked up when he heard her come in, then continued his exercise without stopping. "Good morning, Doc," he said, slightly out of breath. "Or whatever time it is here, I've lost track." Crick 7 stood there, uncertain how to respond. She had expected him to still be recovering, perhaps barely conscious. Instead, he was deliberately making his body work harder. "Mr. Webb, you should be resting. Your injuries were severe." He finished his set and stood up, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I've been resting for 3 days. Got to keep moving or I'll get weak. Besides, the burns are mostly healed, just some scars left." He showed her his arms. The chemical burns that had covered 60% of his body were now faded pink marks. Some areas still looked raw, but the overall healing was remarkable. "Does it not hurt?" she asked. Marcus shrugged. "Sure it hurts, but pain is just information. It tells me what not to do. I've learned to work around it." Crick 7 filed this statement away for her report. Pain is just information. What kind of species could think about pain in such a way? "I have questions for you," she said. "For my research, would you be willing to answer them?" "I figured you would," Marcus replied. He sat down on the edge of his bed and looked at her with what she interpreted as openness. "Ask away, Doc. I've got nothing but time until someone comes to pick me up." She activated her recording device and began. "Mr. Webb, can you tell me about your homeworld, about the conditions you evolved in?" Marcus laughed. "Earth. It's beautiful, Doc. Most dangerous, beautiful place in the galaxy, I'd guess. We've got deserts hot enough to kill you in hours and ice fields cold enough to freeze you solid in minutes. We've got oceans full of creatures with teeth and forests full of things that will poison you just for touching them. We've got storms that throw lightning and winds that tear buildings apart." He paused, seeming to think about something. "And that's just the natural stuff. We've also got diseases that have killed millions, wars that have killed more, and accidents that happen every single day. Being human means knowing that any moment could be your last." Crick 7 felt a chill run through her carapace. "How do you live with such constant danger?" Marcus looked at her with an expression she could not quite read. "We don't just live with it, Doc. We thrive in it. Every challenge we face makes us better. Every obstacle we overcome makes us stronger. It's not about avoiding danger. It's about becoming tough enough to face it and win." He stood up and walked to the small window that looked out over the research station. "You know what I thought when my ship was going down? I thought, okay, this is bad, but I've been through bad before. I survived the desert training on Earth. I survived a mining accident on Mars. I survived a bar fight on Titan that left me with a cracked skull. This was just one more thing to survive." Crick 7's recording device captured every word, but she found herself listening not as a scientist, but as a being trying to understand something fundamentally alien. "And when you were walking through the acid rain," she asked. Marcus turned to face her. "I kept walking because stopping meant dying, and I wasn't ready to die. Simple as that." Simple as that. 3 words that summarized an entire species' approach to existence. Crick 7 knew her report to the Council would need to be very, very detailed. The weeks that followed Marcus Webb's recovery became the most productive research period in Crick 7's career. With his cooperation, she conducted hundreds of tests, took thousands of measurements, and compiled data that would change the galactic understanding of biology forever. Marcus proved to be an ideal subject. He was curious about the research, asked intelligent questions, and seemed genuinely interested in helping the alien scientists understand his species. He also proved to be remarkably patient, even when the tests were uncomfortable or invasive. "You want to do what now?" he asked one morning when Crick 7 explained the day's procedure. "We wish to test your pain tolerance," she said. "We will apply controlled stimuli to various parts of your body and measure your physiological response." Marcus considered this for a moment. "You want to hurt me to see how much I can take?" "In simple terms, yes." He shrugged. "Okay, but fair warning, I've got a pretty high threshold. Comes with the job." The tests confirmed what he said. Marcus endured levels of pain that would have rendered other species unconscious or caused permanent psychological trauma. His body released stress hormones that actually seemed to enhance his cognitive function rather than impair it. Under extreme duress, he became more alert, not less. "Fascinating," Crick 7 murmured as she reviewed the data. "Your species has turned the pain response into a survival advantage. Instead of shutting down to prevent further damage, you activate more fully to address the threat." Fight or flight, Marcus said. Though humans mostly go with fight, running away isn't really in our nature. She added this to her notes. A species that preferred confrontation over escape. A species that saw danger as a challenge rather than a deterrent. The physical tests continued for days. They measured his endurance by having him run on a machine until he could no longer continue. He lasted for 6 hours before his body finally gave out, and even then he tried to keep going. Got to push past the wall, he gasped as medical assistants helped him off the machine. The body tells you to stop, but there's always more in the tank. They tested his strength by having him lift increasingly heavy objects. His raw physical power was not impressive by galactic standards. Many species were much stronger, but his ability to maintain effort over time was extraordinary. Where a Voran would exhaust itself in minutes of peak exertion, Marcus could maintain moderate exertion for hours. Persistence hunting, he explained when she asked about this. That's how our ancestors caught prey. We couldn't outrun them, so we just kept following until they collapsed from exhaustion. Humans are the best long-distance runners on Earth, maybe in the galaxy. Crick 7 documented everything. She documented his ability to function on minimal sleep, his capacity to consume a wide variety of organic compounds for nutrition, and his remarkable skill at regulating his own body temperature. She documented his senses, which were unimpressive compared to many species, and his reflexes, which were above average but not exceptional. But it was the psychological test that truly surprised her. "Mr. Webb, I would like to discuss your mental state," she said one afternoon. "Specifically, your response to your near-death experience." Marcus was sitting comfortably in a chair, eating something from a pouch he called a protein bar. "Sure, Doc. What do you want to know?" According to our psychological models, surviving a traumatic event like a ship crash followed by extended exposure to a hostile environment should result in significant mental disturbance. Anxiety, depression, intrusive memories, difficulty functioning. We see this in survivors of all species. He nodded. Post-traumatic stress. Yeah, we know about that. Some people get it real bad. But our assessments show no signs of such disturbance in you. In fact, you appear to be in excellent psychological health. You sleep well, you eat well, you engage with your environment actively. How is this possible? Marcus chewed thoughtfully on his protein bar. "Doc, humans have been dealing with trauma since we climbed down from the trees. We've developed ways of processing it. Some people struggle, sure, but a lot of us learn to integrate bad experiences and move on." "How?" "Different ways for different people. Some talk about it, some write about it. Some just focus on the next thing they have to do. For me, I think about what I learned. Every bad experience teaches you something. My ship crashed because of a specific mechanical failure. Now I know to check for that failure before every flight. The acid rain taught me to always know where the nearest shelter is on any planet. Survival isn't about avoiding bad things. It's about learning from them." Crick 7 found this perspective remarkable. You view trauma as educational rather than harmful. Both maybe. It hurts when it happens, but the hurt fades. What stays is what you learned, and that makes you better. She recorded this statement and marked it as significant. A species that transformed suffering into growth. A species that became more capable through adversity. "Tell me about your species' history," she said. "Specifically, the challenges you have faced and overcome." Marcus set down his protein bar and seemed to think carefully about how to answer. "Where do I even start? We've survived ice ages that covered half our planet. We've survived plagues that killed most of our population. We've survived wars that we thought would end us. We've survived famines and floods and fires and everything else you can imagine." He leaned forward in his chair. "And here's the thing, Doc. Every time something tried to wipe us out, we came back stronger. The Black Death killed maybe half of Europe's population. The survivors built the Renaissance. World War II was the deadliest conflict in our history. After it ended, we created technologies that put us on the moon within a generation. Crick7's 4 eyes widened. You are suggesting that catastrophe drives advancement. For humans, absolutely. Comfort makes us lazy. Challenge makes us creative. We need problems to solve or we start creating our own. It's probably our biggest flaw and our greatest strength at the same time. She thought about this in the context of galactic history. Most species advanced slowly and steadily, building their civilizations over millennia of careful progress. Stability was prized. Change was managed. Growth was incremental. Humans, it seemed, operated on a completely different model. They lurched from crisis to crisis, each disaster forcing rapid adaptation and innovation. They burned brightly and dangerously, and somehow they did not burn out. Mr. Webb, do you believe your species will survive first contact with the galactic community? The question surprised him. We haven't really had first contact yet, have we? I mean, I've talked to your people, but we haven't exactly been introduced to the whole galaxy. No, she agreed. Your species has been observed but not formally contacted. The Council has been debating how to proceed. Marcus looked at her with sudden intensity. Are they worried we're dangerous? Crick7 hesitated. The answer was yes, but she was not sure how to phrase it diplomatically. They are concerned about the implications of your survival mechanisms. If humans respond to threat by becoming more capable, then any conflict with your species would be extremely problematic. To her surprise, Marcus laughed. Doc, we're not going to attack anyone. We're explorers, not conquerors. Well, mostly. We've done some conquering, but we learned that it doesn't work out well. These days, we're more interested in trade and cooperation. But if you were threatened? His expression changed to something harder. If we were threatened, we would respond. And yeah, we'd get better at it as the conflict continued. That's just how we work, but we don't want conflict. We want friends. We want partners. We want to learn and grow and explore. The galaxy has nothing to fear from us unless it starts something. Crick7 recorded this statement as well, a promise and a warning in equal measure. The humans wanted peace, but they were prepared for war. The more she learned about this species, the more she realized how careful the galactic community would need to be in its approach. Humans were not monsters. They were simply forged by a monster of a world into something the galaxy had never seen before. 3 months after Marcus Webb's arrival at the research station, the Council made its decision. Formal contact with humanity would proceed, and Crick7 would lead the diplomatic mission. It was an honor she had not expected and was not sure she wanted. Why me? She asked Prism Lord when he informed her of the decision. I am a scientist, not a diplomat. You are the only member of our community who has spent significant time with a human, he replied. You understand them better than anyone. That understanding is essential for this mission. She could not argue with his logic. Over the past 3 months, she had come to know Marcus Webb not just as a research subject, but as an individual. She had learned his sense of humor, his values, his fears and hopes. She had learned that humans were not the simple creatures their Deathworld origin might suggest. They were complex, contradictory beings capable of great kindness and great cruelty, often within the same individual. They formed deep emotional attachments, yet could be ruthlessly pragmatic when survival required it. They created beautiful art and devastating weapons with equal skill. And Marcus had taught her something else, something she had not expected. He had taught her that humans were lonely. 8 billion of us on one planet, he had told her during one of their conversations. And we've always wondered if we were alone in the universe. We've sent messages out into space hoping someone would answer. We've built telescopes to look for signs of life. We've written stories about meeting other intelligent species, some hopeful and some terrifying. You wanted to find us, she had said. More than almost anything. Being the only intelligent species in the cosmos is a sad thought. We wanted to know there were others out there, others we could talk to, learn from, grow with. Now, as she prepared for the diplomatic mission, Crick-7 thought about that loneliness. The galactic community had been watching humanity from a distance for decades, cautious and uncertain about how to approach a species from a Class 12 Deathworld. But the humans had been watching back, hopping and waiting for contact. They deserved better than fear. They deserved a chance. Marcus accompanied her on the mission at her request. The Council had been hesitant to allow it, worried about bringing a human into direct contact with galactic civilization before official protocols were established. But Crick-7 had argued that his presence would demonstrate good faith and provide a bridge between cultures. "Are you nervous?" she asked him as their ship approached Earth's solar system. Marcus looked out the viewport at the distant star that warmed his homeworld. "A little. This is a big moment. Humanity's going to meet the galactic community for real. Everything changes after this." "Are you worried about how your people will react?" He considered the question. Some will be scared, some will be excited, some will probably try to figure out how to make money off it. That's humans for you. We're complicated. "And what about you? What do you feel?" Marcus turned from the viewport and looked at her. "Honestly, I feel hopeful. We've been alone for so long, Doc. We've only had each other to talk to fight with, to love. Now we find out there's a whole galaxy out there. That's amazing. That's the most amazing thing that's ever happened to us." His optimism touched something in Crick-7. For all the dangers of this mission, for all the potential for misunderstanding and conflict, here was a human looking at the future with hope rather than fear. Perhaps that was the most human thing of all. The official first contact took place on a space station in orbit around Earth's moon. Human representatives met with the galactic delegation in a specially prepared chamber designed to accommodate multiple species. Crick-7 presented the Council's formal greeting, and the human Secretary General responded with words of welcome and cooperation. It was all very proper and diplomatic, but the real first contact, Crick-7 thought, had happened 3 months ago in an observation chamber on a distant world. It had happened when a damaged human walked through acid rain because he refused to give up. It had happened when he told her that pain was just information and that every challenge made humans stronger. The formal ceremonies lasted for days. There were speeches and documents and symbolic exchanges of gifts. The media of both civilizations recorded everything, and the galaxy watched as a new species took its place among them. Through it all, Marcus stayed by Crick-7's side. He answered questions from curious aliens, explained human customs to confused delegates, and served as a living example of what humans could be when they met the universe with open hands rather than closed fists. "You're good at this," she told him after one particularly successful cultural exchange. He shrugged. "I just talk to people. That's all diplomacy really is, right? Talking to people, listening to them, finding common ground." "On your world, you were a maintenance worker. How do you know so much about diplomacy?" Marcus smiled. "Everyone on Earth has to be a bit of a diplomat. We've got hundreds of countries, thousands of cultures, millions of different ways of seeing the world. If you can't talk to people who are different from you, you don't get very far. The galaxy's just bigger, that's all." Crick-7 thought about this. The galactic community had always managed its diversity through careful isolation, with each species largely staying in its own territory and interacting through established protocols. The idea of hundreds of different cultures sharing one small planet seemed impossibly chaotic. Yet humans had made it work. Not perfectly, but well enough to survive and eventually reach the stars. They had learned to live with their own differences, and now they would learn to live with the differences of the galaxy. In the months that followed the first contact, humanity began its integration into galactic civilization. It was not an easy process. There were misunderstandings and conflicts, moments of tension when human directness clashed with alien politeness or human resilience was mistaken for aggression. But there were also moments of connection. Human musicians collaborated with alien composers to create new forms of art. Human scientists worked alongside galactic researchers to solve problems neither could tackle alone. Human traders found niches in the galactic economy that no one else had thought to fill. And everywhere they went, humans brought their strange combination of vulnerability and toughness, of fear and courage, of caution and boldness. They got hurt and healed. They failed and tried again. They made mistakes and learned from them. The galactic scientific community continued to study human survival mechanisms, and Crick-7 continued to lead that research. But her perspective had changed. She no longer saw humans as just a fascinating biological puzzle. She saw them as partners, as friends, as fellow travelers in a vast and dangerous universe. "Doc, I have a question for you," Marcus said one evening as they reviewed research data together. He had become her permanent liaison to the human scientific community, a role he filled with enthusiasm and competence. "Of course. All those tests you did on me, all that research into how humans survive, what did you conclude? What's the secret to our resilience?" Crick-7 thought carefully about her answer. She had written dozens of papers on the topic, presented findings to countless conferences, and still felt like she was only scratching the surface. "I believe the secret is that there is no secret," she finally said. "Humans are not resilient despite being soft and vulnerable. You are resilient because you are soft and vulnerable. You have no choice but to adapt and overcome because you cannot simply shrug off danger the way armored species do. Every threat is real to you. Every injury matters. So you have evolved to respond to threats and injuries with everything you have." Marcus nodded slowly. "We're tough because we're fragile." "Yes, exactly. Your fragility forces you to develop mental and physical adaptations that ultimately make you more capable than species that never needed to try so hard." He smiled at this. "I think I like that. We're the best because we started with the least." "Something like that." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, two beings from very different worlds who had found understanding across the vast gulf of biology and culture. "Do you think it will work?" Marcus asked eventually. "Humans and the galaxy, I mean. Do you think we can really fit in?" Crick-7 considered the question. The integration was still in its early stages. There would be challenges ahead, moments when the strangeness of humans would cause friction with galactic norms. There would be times when human resilience would frighten those who did not understand it. But she thought about everything she had learned. She thought about a man walking through acid rain because he refused to give up. She thought about a species that transformed suffering into strength and loneliness into hope. "Yes," she said, "I think it will work. The galaxy has survived many changes. It will survive you too." Marcus laughed. "That's not exactly a ringing endorsement." "Perhaps not, but it is the truth. You will change us, Marcus. Your species will change everything about how the galaxy works, but change is not always bad. Sometimes it is necessary." He reached out and touched her arm gently, a human gesture of connection she had learned to appreciate. "Thanks, Doc, for everything, for studying us, for giving us a chance, for being our friend." Crick-7 felt a warmth she had not expected. Friendship with an alien species had never been part of her research goals, but it had happened anyway, the way so many things happened with humans, unexpectedly, powerfully, impossibly. "Thank you as well," she said, "for teaching me that resilience is not about being unbreakable. It is about being willing to break and heal and break again, always moving forward, always growing stronger." "That's humans for you," Marcus said. "We're too stubborn to know when we're beat." Outside the research station, the galaxy continued its ancient dance of stars and civilizations. Somewhere out there, 8 billion humans were beginning their journey into that larger world. They would face challenges that would test everything they had. They would make mistakes and suffer setbacks. But they would survive, they would adapt, they would overcome. Because that was what humans did. That was what they had always done. And the galaxy, for better or worse, would never be the same. 5 years after first contact, the galactic scientific community gathered on the human world of Mars for the first interstellar conference on Deathworld biology. It was a landmark event, bringing together researchers from dozens of species to share what they had learned about the remarkable organisms that evolved in extreme environments. Crix 7 gave the keynote address. She stood before an audience of thousands, both physically present and connected through interstellar communications, and presented the culmination of years of research. Distinguished colleagues, I began studying humans as a curiosity. A species from a Class 12 Deathworld seemed impossible, a biological contradiction. How could soft, fragile beings survive in such a hostile environment? How could they thrive there? She gestured to the display behind her, showing Earth in all its dangerous beauty. What I have learned has changed my understanding of life itself. We have always assumed that survival requires strength, armor, natural weapons. We have always believed that the toughest species are the ones that can withstand the most damage. The display changed to show a human, healthy and smiling. Humans have taught us a different lesson. True resilience does not come from being impervious to harm. It comes from being able to recover from harm. It comes from the ability to learn from every challenge and grow stronger because of it. She paused to let this sink in. In the 5 years since first contact, we have studied human biology, psychology, and culture in unprecedented detail. We have learned that their survival mechanisms are not just physical but mental and social as well. Humans support each other through hardship. They share knowledge across generations. They create meaning from suffering. The display showed data from countless studies, survival rates under various conditions, recovery times from different injuries, psychological resilience metrics that defied explanation. But the most remarkable thing we have discovered is not how humans survive. It is how they respond to adversity. When faced with challenges, humans do not simply endure. They innovate. They adapt. They find new solutions to problems that have defeated other species for millennia. She brought up a list of human contributions to galactic science and technology since first contact. It was surprisingly long for such a short time. New medical treatments based on human immune system research, engineering innovations inspired by human persistence, social strategies for managing diverse populations. Humans have not just integrated into our civilization, they have enhanced it. They have brought fresh perspectives to old problems. They have challenged assumptions we did not even know we held. They have made us stronger by showing us that strength takes many forms. Crix 7 looked out at her audience. She saw familiar faces from many species, colleagues who had worked alongside humans and been changed by the experience. She saw skeptics who still feared what human resilience might mean for galactic stability. She saw the curious and the hopeful and the uncertain. The galaxy has always been dangerous, she said. We have always faced threats that could destroy us. Natural disasters, cosmic events, conflicts between species. But we have also always survived because we have been willing to adapt and grow. She smiled, something she had learned from her human friends. Perhaps what humans have to teach us is not just about biology. Perhaps it is about potential. Every species has the capacity to become more than it is. Every individual can overcome challenges they thought impossible. We simply need the courage to try and the resilience to keep trying when we fail. The display showed one final image, Marcus Webb standing beside Crix 7, both of them surrounded by researchers from a dozen different species. It had been taken at the opening of the Interspecies Resilience Research Center, a facility dedicated to understanding how all forms of life adapted to challenge. Humans have shown us that being fragile is not a weakness. It is an opportunity to develop strength that runs deeper than armor or venom or claws. The strength to face any obstacle and say, as my friend Marcus once told me, I wasn't going to let a little acid rain stop me. The audience responded with their various forms of applause, clicking mandibles, flashing colors, humming frequencies, clapping hands. It was a symphony of appreciation from across the galaxy. After the conference, Crick 7 found Marcus waiting for her outside the auditorium. He had aged a bit in the 5 years since they first met, a few more lines on his face, a little gray in his hair. Humans aged quickly by galactic standards, another sign of their brief, intense existence. "Good speech, Doc," he said, "though you made me sound more heroic than I am." "I reported the facts," she replied. "Your interpretation is your own." He laughed. "Fair enough. But really all I did was not die. That's a pretty low bar for heroism." "On the contrary, Mr. Webb, refusing to die when everything says you should is the most heroic thing any being can do. It is the foundation of all achievement." They walked together through the Martian colony, past buildings designed by human and alien architects working in collaboration. The red planet had been transformed over the past 5 years, not into an Earth copy but into something new, a world shaped by the combined efforts of many species. "You know what I think about sometimes," Marcus said. "I think about how scared we were before first contact, scared that aliens would be hostile, or that they would think we were too dangerous, or that we just wouldn't be able to communicate at all. Those were reasonable fears. Maybe, but none of it happened the way we worried about. We found friends instead of enemies. We found partners instead of rivals. The galaxy turned out to be a lot more welcoming than we expected." Crick 7 considered this. "Do you believe that is because of our efforts, the diplomatic work, the cultural exchange, the scientific cooperation?" "Partly, but I think it's also because of something else." He stopped walking and turned to face her. "I think it's because, when you get right down to it, all intelligent life wants the same things. We want to survive. We want to grow. We want to understand the universe and our place in it. We want connection and meaning and hope." He gestured at the Martian landscape around them. "Humans aren't that different from you, Doc. We're just shaped by different circumstances. But underneath all the biology and culture and history, we're the same. We're all just trying to make our way through a universe that doesn't care whether we survive or not." Crick 7 felt the truth of his words. In all her years of studying other species, she had focused on differences. Different anatomies, different psychologies, different survival strategies. But Marcus was right. The similarities ran deeper than the differences. "Perhaps that is the real lesson of human resilience," she said. "Not how to survive individually, but how to survive together. Cooperation is its own form of adaptation." "Now you're getting it," Marcus said with a grin. "Welcome to humanity, Doc. We're all in this together." They continued their walk through the colony, past research labs and living quarters, past parks and markets, past all the infrastructure of a new civilization taking shape. Around them, beings from dozens of worlds worked and lived and dreamed side by side. The galaxy was changing. Humans had brought their particular brand of stubborn hope to a community that had grown perhaps too comfortable with its own limitations. They had reminded everyone that growth was possible, that challenges could be overcome, that the future was not fixed. Crick 7 had begun her research expecting to document a biological oddity. She had ended up documenting something far more important, a blueprint for survival that any species could learn from. Not the survival of the fittest, but the survival of the most adaptable. The survival of those who refuse to give up. As the sun set over Mars, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, she thought about all the challenges that still lay ahead. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers. There would be conflicts and crises, disasters and difficulties. The work of building an interstellar community had only just begun. But for the first time in her long career, Crick 7 felt genuinely optimistic about the future, because she had learned what humans knew in their bones, that every challenge was an opportunity, every setback was a lesson, and every ending was also a beginning. The human sitting beside her was proof of that. Marcus Webb had survived a ship crash, walked through acid rain, become a bridge between civilizations, and changed the galaxy forever. And he had done it not because he was special, but because he was human. That was the secret of Deathworld resilience, not physical toughness or biological adaptation, just the simple, stubborn refusal to accept defeat, the willingness to get back up every time you were knocked down, the belief that tomorrow could be better than today if you were willing to fight for it. The galaxy had learned that lesson now, and thanks to humanity, it would never forget.